I have no way to segue this into my running joke, so I am fully aware that I didn't do a video last year of my best and most disappointing of 2023. I had stuff going on and I figured it wasn't really worth it by the time I had gotten over the worst of it. But I did have a list, so we're just going to go over the best of real quickly. So, Ultra Kill, really fun retro style shooter while removing the bad parts of old FPS. Great movement, love the parry and healing mechanic, and not the biggest fan of the music. Tales from the Borderlands, great to see more grounded story, good characters, more world building, though the moral choices is irrelevant because outside of the one needed in cast, we got basically all the choices. Also, Handsome Jack comes back, which is nice. Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together with all the DLCs. Don't Starve is varied and a difficult game, or Don't Starve Together is a better gameplay, it's constantly updated and has more co-op element. Also made a mod 4 years ago. I keep saying I'll remake it, but I just don't. Starship Troopers, EDF 6 wasn't out, Helldivers 2 wasn't out, so this was the only book in the game I had available to me, even if the server issues made it really annoying. MechWarrior 5, this feels like the version of mech fighting which I enjoy. So Vikings, battleships, look now. I love all the various kinds of ships. I love how good the gameplay is. I really do dislike the fact that you need to use mods to make anything good. Leave Company has got the perfect blend of horror and funny with all the perfectly timed moments that happen just because of the community doing stuff. It's to the point where I can handle it, and the proxy voice is fantastic. Also, I did Leave Company animation for both Lavero and for Lucy. Miles Morales. I much prefer Miles over Peter because Peter just annoys me. I really enjoy the fact that they improved on the gameplay from the first one, including new abilities, and they made the side missions less grindy. Sonic Forces, I don't get hate for this game, it's a lot of fun, I just wish the stage was longer. Honestly, just remove Classic Sonic and make the longer Avatar and Sonic stages, so the Avatar weapons do need a bit of a tweaking. Rescuing Returns, or I said in the first Rescue Grain, had better multiplayer support, this was top Rescue Grain 2, and well, the remake does that, I just wish I had mad support. Right, well, onward to this year. I was on the fence about this one. Sure, it being a PvP game is great, but it's a live service game. And I like to avoid those since a lot of time now live service is making especially predatory FOMO. League. Luckily, Helldivers 2 has what I would argue is the best way of doing a live service game. First, you gain the premium currency as you play by doing side objectives. This not only gives people an incentive to keep playing, but also to explore the map as opposed to just rushing through and completing it as quick as you can. Number 2 is that the Season Pass gives you premium currency, with the first one being a freebie. Sure, it doesn't give you enough to get to the next pass, but that doesn't matter because of number 3. The passes never expire. You can still work through the first pass which came through without any worry about FOMO. The only FOMO is particular missions which might appear and due to the evolution of the war become unavailable. On top of that, the gameplay is just fun. Dealing with the Tyranids, or if you're more like me, fighting the automatons, requires different playstyles. The amount of weapons and upgrades allow you to approach the objective differently, though admittedly it does feel like some of them are dominant strategy. Still, it's a ton of fun. There's a lot of going for the game, it's had its problems, and it's still rather fun, even with the initial hype dying down. Originally, I wasn't going to put this on here. I was going to put it on the disappointed list given Sonic's slow speed, till I found a setting. Putting Sonic's potential speed to max instantly makes the game feel like, well, a Sonic game. It's fun to run around these large maps and explore with all the areas to go and enemies to fight. I was originally concerned given the added collectathon mechanics, and I'm not the biggest fan of them. But the collectathons are well designed because almost all of them grant a full-on progression. Here's a scenario. You do a side mission to reveal the map, but it also adds new grind rails, so you can get around faster, which lets you access more collectibles. You can go for including some, which increase your stats. And with these new grind rails and platforms, you can do the score attack missions easier. But by doing that, you end up running across the collectibles that you can get, so you go after them, but you run into more collectibles and more missions, and so on and so forth. And it's a lot of fun outside of the occasion where you're just minding your own business and suddenly... I also like the portrayal of the characters in this. I don't get the hate with Ian Flynn. This is a story which feels more like the older Kid Age group that they went towards with Adventure. They didn't get too edgy like with Shadow the Hedgehog, they didn't go too complex like with Sonic 06. It felt a bit more like the maturity of Adventure, maybe even a bit more so. It's got intrigue, some mystery, and actually clear some backstory about the Chaos Emerald. I also like the new addition of Sage, though honestly I'm more interested on what they'll do after Frontier, since it appears she becomes more independent through the game. I feel we'll get something similar to Shadow's relationship with Robotnik, except it's between Sage and Sonic, but who knows? Also, yeah, I can't deny the vocal tracks are incredible, but honestly, one of my favorite non-vocal tracks has to be the score attack track. There's something about it mixed with just the urgency that makes it really fit well. I do have a few issues with the game. Specifically, the camera's a bit unruly. I mean, that's typical for Sonic games, but this was a big attempt at something and they didn't do so good. But the other thing that really annoys me is the pop-in. I feel this should be a simple fix, but they haven't done that. I'm really glad though that the game did well, especially since it appears that Sonic Team had a bit more time than normal, because hopefully Sega will give them more time to make the Sonic game even better. Look, I don't think it was any surprise after I put Endwalker in the best I played in 2021 that this would be here. It's great having a new expansion to go through, and it was pretty alright. Not the best. If I had to put it in a line of worst to best 14 expansions, it would be right ahead of Stormblood. That's not knocking Stormblood, it's a great expansion, I just think it's the weakest of them. I enjoy the environments, the music is great, though I do wonder what is up with the Tololioli music track. The characters are good. I know Wooklamat has a lot of opinions from people, but I'm just gonna say Stormblood Lee, she is not. Sure, we do stuff the lesson into her head, but unlike Lee, she does grow, does take leadership, and actually has some importance in the story versus Lee, who just kind of hung back and let everyone else do the work. It might be people are mad because they aren't center of attention more, or a reason I'm not going to specify because it's honestly uncalled for. I guess complaint-wise, the story's plot pacing does go into overdrive for the second half. One of the big things was meant to be backstory about Kryl, but a big reveal about her is kind of just brushed aside, with her clearly being told it off-screen and a while before the quest where she admits it. And from level 96 to 100, there's only around 40 quests, almost a core of them for an arguably pointless side plot that screams we need something for this area. There's also the difficulty, specifically at mid-eye level, which is like 90% of people going through the story the first time. At mid-eye level, these feel like the most brutal dungeons we've had. Sure, once you get just a smidge past said eye level, it's better, but the first go, it's painful given that a one full stack healer can be one-shot by a raid Y. I'm looking forward to how the story goes. I just hope they improve on it. 4.1's already out, and it's kind of going in the right direction. Kind of. I have a real bad habit when it comes to long-running franchises. If there's a game in a series that's coming out that interests me, then typically I want to play through that franchise in release date order or as close as I can. Do I want to play the new Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, I better make sure I play through Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, original 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 15, 16, and 7 Remake. Plus, potentially the direct sequels, if they're important. And the one that started this decision? Doom Eternal. Silent Hill 1, Castlevania 1, Resident Evil 1 were literally curiosities. Doom Eternal was a game I was interested in. I'm not there yet, but I did get up to 2016. It's been a while since I felt the pure joy I've had while playing this. It's pure violent fun, similar to the older games, and everything can be summarized in 2 words. Who cares? It sounds negative, but it's actually a very good positive because it's the way that it adds to the fun, because the follow-up is pretty much always violence. Obsessed is attacking you right after you just woke up? Who cares? Shoot him. The radar station's offline? Who cares? Kill everything in your path and I guess so the radar station. A big bad is getting away, and while you could probably chase after him, you don't? Yeah. Okay, this one you can't do anything about. Boo. Honestly, I do have one complaint with the game though. I really don't like the music. It's just not my kind of music. I don't like it. I've been waiting years for EDF6. After playing 5 for many hours, I waited for 6, and it's arguably better than 5 in nearly every way. The game has the most missions in the franchise of over 140, and that's not including the DLC packs. The weapons are wacky, actually has a somewhat cohesive and engaging story, and things are scaled up even more. The enemy roster also has doubled since 5, with 6 new enemies added to the 8 we already have, ignoring variants. Some with interesting and infuriating mechanics. They took what made 5 good and improved on it. Mostly. Honestly, this is where personal preference is going to kick in. I'm not the biggest fan of some of the air raider changes. Its normal gunship abilities, nerfed until maxed out. Turrets, gone to the Ranger. New vehicle, they gave the cool one to the Ranger, who typically isn't a vehicle user because the other stuff that they have is far more important. And the drones are very hit and miss, with some being outright useless because of either short range or the fact that aiming them is hard to do. Plus, the bad future missions are never fun as an air raider because free Corsair stuff is unavailable, and the depth crawler does not cut it. Also, has a real bad issue on multiplayer of crashing and desyncing, which is something older EDFs didn't have. At worst, EDF 4.1 had the occasional hang-on connecting, which was annoying, but isn't nearly as frustrating as EDF 6 stuff. So, Mass Effect 2 is a big improvement over 1. Let's look back at Mass Effect 1's problems that I had. The inventory system was clunky, tons of bloat on gear, psionics were busted, and exploration was boring. In comparison, there's no clunky inventory, you actually have very few weapons, instead you get the weapons upgraded. Psionics got nerfed, but also other abilities got buffed and encourages using your abilities more. Exploration is more incentive, but can get boring too. The new characters were good additions, alongside some new romance options. Tally. The plot was fine. Honestly, I think this is more down to the fact that the game is old rather than it being a bad plot. It's just standards. We've had better stories. I don't want to be that guy, but we've had better stories than Mass Effect 2 since then. The removal of infinite ammo is kinda good, kinda bad. It means you can't spam your strongest weapon, sure, but it also can make some fights harder than it needs to be. Oh, and the final boss is a major disappointment. I practically one-shot it with my heavy weapon. Sure, it was a nuke, but if I had a tiny bit more ammo, I could have ended it in 2 shots. Saren could at least withstand hits when things were maxed out for damage. I'm also not the biggest fan of the requirements to perfect the suicide mission. Not the whole gaining the loyalty of everyone, that one's fine, but the fact that you need to make specific choices or that people die, and you need to go for the suicide mission the second it becomes available to save all the crew. Meaning if you want to save everyone, you'll only get to have Legion to hang out with for 2 missions before the final one, unless you mod Legion in early. Which sucks because out of all the characters in 2, he's the most interesting one. A Geth being a friend. That's crazy. I hate this game. I know it sounds weird because it's on my best of and not my most disappointing, but let me explain. I don't hate it because of the gameplay, or the story, or literally any aspect of its existence. I hate it because
it made me a 40k fan. My experience with 40k was limited to the Dawn of War series, then technically Fire Warrior, but I was a kid then and only played it once. It was fine, but it didn't pique my interest in the franchise. Mostly because when I looked into it, there's no good guy to root through. At least after the Tau revision. But by the Emperor's Throne, this game's got its hooks in me. Space Marine 2 also reminds me of games long since passed during the 2000s. I say this because this feels like Gears of War without the cover system and more melee focus. Dark Future, Big Muscle Man, slow movement with only short bursts of speed and mobility, devastating melees, limited weapon availability. Despite that, the game has significant polish. It shows in the addition to the lack of expensive microtransactions, though it'd be nice if you could get them in-game like Helldivers 2 does. Sure, there's a few issues. The control scheme can take a bit of getting used to compared to the other third-person shooters that you typically play, and the game expects you to not only have played the first game, which is expected as a sequel, but also know about 40k lore in general to understand the significance, such as why the Thousand Sons don't have bodies, or the reputation of the Cadians, or what the warp is. It'd be nice if there was a codex for the uninitiated to learn, sort of like a field intelligence manual or something. Another part as well is that while it does have some replayability, there's just not enough operations to really keep it varied. It's mostly a case of you run through it and it's basically the same all the time, maybe with the occasional additional wave. I guess it's because we want to put more focus on the PvP, but I don't want to play it. I'm just saying, I would much rather fight Tyranids and NPC chaoses instead of real-life players who are gonna kick my ass and get me frustrated. That said, they do have a horde mode coming. I'm going to have a lot of fun when that horde mode arrives, I'm pretty sure. Especially if we can change the settings on there.
Oh, what a shot. Baldur's Gate's freeze on here. I think it's really good. Oh, wow. Who would have saw that come in? It's hard to say something about this game that hasn't already been said already. The game looks good. The game plays good. The characters are great. The music is nice. This really does feel like a Dungeons and Dragons game. The funny part is that it's on this list. I've had it basically since it came out. I still haven't got past Act 1 because I just enjoy playing through Act 1 so much. I don't even know what happens in the rest of the game. All I know is that I'm having fun just with Act 1. It's what I say with like Divinity Original Sin 2. You don't complete Larian games, you just start a new playthrough. Anyone who's finished this game, I refuse to believe that. I don't accept it. And anything that you show, it's fake. It's fake. You photoshopped it. I don't care. So, this is a bit of a weird one, but I want to go through 3 honorable mentions, ones which were good, really good, but not good enough for me to be here before I get to my last one. So, Terrors of Nowhere. It's a game within VR chat. It is essentially you just keep away from various creatures. It's a silly game. It's a fun game. And it's a good way to meet people, I suppose. Content warning, it's clearly aiming for something akin to Lethal Company. While it does a good job, I don't feel it's as good as Lethal Company. In addition, Lethal Company has the advantage now of having a lot of mod support, whereas this doesn't. I'm pretty sure this has a potential to go places. I especially like the fact that you can save the recordings that you made, but I just feel that it's a little bit, it needs a bit more to it. Timberborn. This is an interesting little game. The big problem with this one, the reason why it's only an honorable mention, is because it's in early access still. It feels like there's no, like they have monuments for the end game, but they have no real end state, and it gets to the point where you can essentially just relax and wait until you gradually build up your supplies to the point where you can do stuff. I did a playthrough where I basically turned over 1/3 of the map into a dam, and I didn't have to do anything else beyond that. It was a fun thing to do, but there wasn't really a whole lot of challenge. Galactic Civilizations 2. This kind of reminds me of Civilization, but it's in space. The problem is that it shows its age. It shows its age. Like I do enjoy all the settings that you can change and everything, but it feels its age, I guess. Honestly, I don't think many people are going to be surprised with this choice, but when Sonic Generations came out, a lot of people say that it's the best 3D Sonic game of all time. Now Shadow Generations has came out and people say Shadow Generations is the best 3D Sonic game of all time. And I'm inclined to agree. This game is a perfect example of what Sonic Team can do when they are given the time and budget to make it happen. Shadow controls phenomenally. The camera works great. The gameplay is fantastic. The level design, despite being boost gameplay, gives tons of alternatives. No more just holding boost to the end of the game. The various powers that Shadow can make use of. The story actually being, again, akin to the Adventure series. More serious, more emotional. I'm actually kind of sad about Shadow Generations being as good as it is, because now so many more people, when the next Sonic game comes out, are going to point to Shadow Generations and say, it's not as good as this. I'm fully convinced that Shadow Generations is the best 3D Sonic we've ever gotten, and it doesn't even include Sonic. Honestly, the big downside with the game is just the fact that it's short. You can complete it in about 2 or 3 hours. Now, at the same time, this is just an addition to Sonic Generations, which is already a short game. So my hope is that if they're given some time, we're talking years of time, not months of time, that they're able to make a game that is a decent length, maybe about Frontier's length, but have such good gameplay akin to Shadow Generation. I know I don't normally put 2 games of the same franchise in on a list, but I feel this was worth it because this game is it's just that good. It is just that good. And I am looking forward to what they do with it now after all this. But still, that is it for my list for this year. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye!